Howdy. Hello. Hello there. I try to not start every video the same. Maybe having 3 greetings will work. And I'm trying to cut the silliness down. It's expanding the length of my videos. And while I enjoy it, I'm not sure it comes across real well for y'all. This is my brain went absolutely blank for just a second. This is a Whisky Basics video. As you know, if you've watched the previous videos in this playlist, I still don't know how, I've quit trying to figure it out, it's beyond me. Somehow, I deleted every last video. I deleted the whole playlist at once. 36 videos down the drain. So I'm re-recording them, and I'm just doing them in the same order that I did them originally, and that is the order in which the various topics occurred to me. So for this one, and by the way, if you've watched the previous videos, you know it's question and answer format. I ask a question, I answer it. The question for this video is, what are whiskey snobs and how do you deal with them? I can't recall the specific circumstances which put that question in my mind back a couple of years ago, I think it was. But it is a valid question. And in dealing with it, let me pour some whiskey. I'll pour it and then I'll show you the bottle, since I'm already doing things as I am. This is a bottle of Frey Ranch bourbon. Let's see, it says straight bourbon whiskey. Now they could put on it Nevada straight bourbon whiskey, because on the Frey Ranch, which has been around since 1854, before Nevada was a state, before the War of Northern Aggression, or if I guess I could choose to be polite and call it the late unpleasantness or the War for Southern Independence, whatever. This is the Frey Ranch began in 1854, and the same family runs it now. Now the distillery isn't that old, not by a long shot. It didn't start till, I believe, in this century, the 2000s. So, but they could call it Nevada straight bourbon whiskey because they grow their own grain, distill it, age it, and bottle it right there on the range. But for whatever reason they don't. It's a 4-grain bourbon, which is corn, wheat, barley, and rye. And it's a right pretty bottle, right pretty label, and until it got down about halfway, I literally would pick it up, well, I'll hold it here. I would pick it up like that, and I would pour with 2 hands. It's heavy. This cork you could brain somebody with. This is a weapon if you want it to be. Unlike the movies, bottles, once again I have to shift. Bottles don't bust when you just bonk them on somebody's head. They will do severe damage. They will break your skull. But what are whiskey snobs? Oh, as always, it smells like apples, golden delicious apples. There are 2 basic sources for that term, which I use. I don't know if anybody else does. One is Randy Sullivan of Bourbon Real Talk, who has a Facebook group. I'm not there. I'm not on Facebook at all. Never will be again. But he says that his group does not have whiskey trolls in it. But I like jazz now and again, and when I was first getting into jazz, first learning about it, I learned the term jazz snobs. These are people who think they know everything there is to know about jazz, and their views are correct, and anybody who differs with them is somehow inferior. Well, you take whiskey trolls, jazz snobs, move them together, you have whiskey snobs. These are people who think they know more about whiskey than you do, and maybe they do. If you're new to whiskey, and that's who this channel is for, if you're new to whiskey, obviously just about everybody knows more about it than you do. Big, fat, hairy deal. Everybody starts somewhere. Ernest Hemingway wasn't always a great writer. He started out as a little kid. Started out as a baby crying for his bottle. You know, you take the greatest scientist on earth, Isaac Newton, is a bunch of people have said he's the greatest scientist ever to live. He wrote more, by the way, about the Bible than he did about science. He was more of a theologian than a scientist, and yet the greatest scientist in history. He had a mind, and he used it. But take Isaac Newton. There was a time when he was toddling around, falling on his butt because he hadn't really learned how to walk yet. So, if there are people who know more about whiskey than you, not a problem. You'll learn. And maybe one of these days you'll become a world expert on whiskey. Fred Minnick at one point was not a bourbon writer. He was a combat reporter in Iraq. He came back. He needed some way to deal with what we now call post-traumatic stress. He got into whiskey. Now he's a world expert on bourbon. But he started at the bottom. So if somebody gives you the impression that he knows more than you, it might be right, but it doesn't matter. He started at the bottom too. This is such a good bourbon, but the nose is, and if I were doing a review, I'd take the time and pick it apart. But just casually, this nose is nothing but apples. The apples aren't as strong on the palate, but it's good. Now, those are whiskey snobs. How do you deal with them? Well, I've already kind of given you the answer. Ignore them. Now, if you do happen to know something that a whiskey snob doesn't, you're free to say so. You're free to say, here's how it is. Here, here's the sources. These are the facts. There's not a thing wrong with laying out the facts. There is nothing wrong with stating your opinion. Trick is that you don't become a whiskey snob too and act like your opinion is gospel, because it ain't. But how do you deal with them? Ignore them. What they want is attention. And they specifically want the attention of people they have bullied into submission. If you simply stating the truth doesn't get the point across, if they continue to be bullies, ignore them. Now, there are ways you can do that. You can obviously block them if you're on Facebook or MeWe or whatever. I'm on MeWe. There, if you state an unpopular opinion, you don't wind up in jail. If you post an unpopular picture, you don't wind up in jail. Now, people will block the living daylights out of you if you make yourself odious. And you can do that with a whiskey snob. If he just will not behave in a civilized manner, you can block him. You don't even have to know he's there. I'm sure there are people in Albuquerque who would say unkind things about anybody who drinks whiskey at all. I don't know their names, I don't know where they live, I don't know what they say, and it doesn't bother me at all. They can rave on for days. It doesn't affect me. You can block them people, and what they say won't affect you. And I'm actually going to be able to keep this video short. I'm just getting to 11 minutes. I've said pretty much all there is to it. You know, you run into a whiskey snob, tell the truth. Don't be an idiot about it, but say, you know, here's what I find. Here's my opinion. If he doesn't like it, ignore him. If you have to, block him. And you're done with it. Don't work yourself up over these people. They're not worth it. And although they won't admit it, your opinion in an area as subjective as whiskey is just as valid as theirs, and you should stick to it and not let them tell you what to do, what to think, what to say, nothing like that. So having said that, I don't know any particularly Nevada ways and toasts or anything like that. It's a western state, and that conveys nothing to me. So what I'm going to do to end this video, and when I started this channel, by the way, I never knew how to end a video. I finally came up with this. Here's mud in your eye.